Hello, and welcome to Shrink, the podcast for the mind. I'm Philippe, and I talk to the people who want to have a better understanding of their issues with weight and body image. So today I'm having a chat with Justina, who's doing master in psychology. Hello, Justina.
Hello, hi.
Hi. We thought it was a good thing to share both our stories, in fact, in dealing with our issues with our body image, our weight. What do you think? Do you think that's a nice way to kind of summarize it, or?
Yes, I think we both have a good share of experiences in this topic, and hopefully someone can listen and relate and feel a little bit less lonely in their struggles. I think it's important to talk about it because it's a very isolating place.
It is very isolating. I know that. I know it from my work experience. I know it from myself, and you. So do you. That when you're dealing with many psychological issues, but more specifically maybe with addictions or with, in this case, eating disorders. Even if you have your family around you, even if you have good friends. They cannot really help you, even if they want to. Did you notice that?
Absolutely. I think it's also something that this disorder, illness does to you. It makes you feel very alone, and it makes you feel like you can't really go to people with this. It's on purpose keeping you very much in your head, and it's the element, I think, that drove me very insane, is also connected with an imposter syndrome. Maybe the illness loves to tell you you're not ill enough, so you don't even
you're not ill enough.
Yeah, you're not.
What do you mean by that?
So you don't know whether to reach out or not. I think, what do I mean by that? I think it's a common experience. I know between some women, I spoke about it too, is the question, when am I sick enough to reach out for help?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I think family in this element is also something you want to keep quite far from the disorder, because you at the same time want help, you want to stop feeling the way you're feeling, but at the same time you don't want to stop. It's a very addicting mechanism, and I definitely kept it quite under the blankets. Is that a phrase?
Yeah.
Under the sheets? No.
Under the radar, I don't know.
Yes, because it's very rooted in shame.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to speak about it, especially to loved ones.
Yeah, and because they don't understand, in fact.
Yeah.
And even if even if they're really smart, and even if they really love you, they just. So I hear it from clients or friends, and you've probably heard that people tell you, but you look great. Come on, why do you worry about losing a kilo or putting on a kilo? You're great as you are. It doesn't matter. Who cares? And you can hear that, but you cannot really make sense of it when you're dealing with these disorders. It's like, okay, yes, I know, I hear what you say, but that's deep inside me. That's not how I feel.
I think if you've never experienced those type of psychological mechanisms, it's incredibly hard to understand. People will say just eat, but once you know, you know. It's something that is, I think, incredibly specific. The nature of the thought patterns you have, and they are quite absurd, which also creates this further idea of shame, because you feel ridiculous telling people, oh, I'm struggling with eating, and they say, what do you mean, just eat? Right? It seems like I always had this idea, maybe it's coming from I'm Polish, and maybe it's a post-communist mentality, but I felt like it was such a first world problem. I was like, oh, little princess can't eat, like, and my parents grew up with free jams and like one loaf of bread. And it definitely adds another layer to it is like, what is this issue? Like, why can I just eat? There are people around that, I hate this argument, there are people that don't have food. Like,
No, I
there
know,
are
but
people
we hear it.
starving.
We hate. Yeah, we hear it. Yeah.
So it can, you can feel, you can get a sense of being patronized by people as well when you speak up about it. That's why I think it's very important to have a support network of people who understand it, and therefore very often it's not your family.
No, it's either therapy or a support group. In fact, we have
Have an announcement.
We have an announcement. It's something we're working on. We'd like to not we would like. We're working on creating or starting a support group. First, we will do it in West London, and that will be a group that anyone can attend. Anyone that has issues or questions with body image.
It's gonna be a non-judgmental, anonymous group where you can feel like you're surrounded by people who understand, and it's an open space for you to speak about your struggles and maybe find someone that shares similar issues.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing when, that's how. So it's not a therapy group in any way.
Yes.
It will be free, and people will. It will be once a week, probably for an hour and a half, and you can join these groups and not say anything. It's anonymous, really, and it's up to you. So we're working on this. We're very excited about that because we've both seen and felt how lonely this process can be. Some people cannot afford to see a therapist because it's quite expensive, and I think that by hearing the stories of others, it makes us feel like, oh, I'm not alone dealing with this. Even we know it cognitively, we know some other people are doing it, but then you can see other people, sharing their struggle and their success as well. It's not only struggles, it's success.
Motivating.
Yeah, it's motivating.
I think, like we just said, it's I think very important to have people who understand it and you can speak to, because that's, I think, what deconstructs this disorder, because the disorder very much is based on that idea of shame. That's what it feeds on, is you not speaking to people, you keeping it all inside your head and perpetuating those horrible patterns, behaviors, thoughts. And the more you speak about it, hopefully the more you can rationalize those thoughts. So that's our goal for this, and we both experienced a lot of loneliness in this, and I wish when I was struggling the most, I had a group like this.
When was that? How old were you when you were really struggling with that?
I think.
When did it start?
So it started, I would say I started having any sort of issues with my physical self at the age of 15. But that was very much body image. I did not. I wouldn't say I had an eating disorder then. I just had strong body image issues, which is something I think quite common at this age, because as a woman, I just remember my hips got wider and I randomly stopped recognizing my body. And so at 15, I remember becoming very aware of how my body looks. And it brought me a lot of discomfort. I started therapy at the age of 17, I think.
Around that? Was it therapy around on that topic or not specifically?
It was partially, yes. I think it was just overall a turbulent period for me. It was just entering adolescence. So it was kind of targeted at everything, but the reason why I decided to do therapy was because those body image issues were getting so strong that I just felt miserable and I didn't understand myself and my body.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but so what did you think you were too big or what was going through your mind?
I think it was being too big, because when you're younger you're kind of a stick, and then
not everyone though.
Okay, sorry. Well,
no.
I'm genetically quite small. So when I was a child I was small, and then when my when hormones started kicking in, as I said, like my hips got larger, and so I guess it was always my my issues always revolved around being too big. I always felt like I was too big. But I didn't actually start engaging in disordered eating until I was 19. And that's when things started going downhill. But I had a good long 4 years foreplay to that of body image issues.
Yeah, yeah. So your eating habits changed. You started you were in some kind of control, or trying to, because I know how difficult it can be.
Yeah.
Find some kind of control on.
I just stopped being in an incredibly abusive relationship, and I moved countries, and I came to England. And I was at first very happy because I felt very liberated to be out of this horrible place I was in. And it took, because I moved to England I think when I was 18, and it started so the first year I was kind of still enjoying the freedom of not being abused. And then once the dust settled, around half a year later, I started processing what happened for the last 3 years. It was also a very long relationship, which, by the way, is also common in abusive relationships. Is very hard to leave, and it adds another layer of anger at yourself from the perspective of time.
I'm not sure about that. I'm just asking, do you think it's common because if you don't have a good image about yourself, you give more freedom to the other person to somehow abuse you verbally or maybe even physically, I don't know. Yeah. But do you think that if you were more confident, you wouldn't let someone treat you the way he or she did treat you?
I think there is a chance that if I had a very strong idea of myself and my worth, it wouldn't go this way. But I'm also quite aware how strong those abusive mechanisms can even, reverse it. So maybe I could have been an incredibly confident girl, but, people can get in your head.
Of course. Oh no, so, I know.
But I wonder, if I was stronger, could I have resisted it more? It's a good question.
Well, it's like, it's something which is unusual, in fact. Anyway.
But it's also scary that you can be an incredibly confident person, know who you are. Normally, you don't let people fuck with you, and
but then it happens.
Yeah,
I know. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Very often we think it couldn't be me. So I started processing all of this, and
what do you mean by processing? Like.
So, processing. I think you're right. It wasn't even processing. I was just thinking about it.
Yeah.
For as soon as I left this relationship, I completely pushed it out of my head and just absolutely didn't think about it. I think it was just also a defense mechanism from my brain.
Yeah.
But after around 6 months to a year after the breakup, I just started getting all the flashbacks, memories, and I really tried to understand it. Why? Like, why would you ever do this to a person you supposedly love? Why would you do it to a person you don't love? Why would you ever treat any human like this? Physical violence and mental violence in relationships is something I think I will never understand. But it became present in my thoughts, those experiences. And I think let me think.
Was there some kind of guilt as well, which is not uncommon? For some reason, we tend to excuse the person who's abusing us and thinking maybe I wasn't good enough, or I was. You think there was some guilt?
My guilt. I mean, definitely the person that I was in a relationship with had a very troubled past. So I think my thought process was always feeling bad for him, not for myself. I had what is it? Is it a Stockholm syndrome?
It can be, yes. It can be some kind of Stockholm
I felt
syndrome.
Very bad for him.
Yeah. It's also your empathy. I think it's because you genuinely, because I know you a bit, and you're someone who cares for others, and so it's you're more prompt, or you're more tempted to try to understand them and try to see if you can help them, and you can't. In fact, when people are like that, you can't. Well, they can, maybe a proper therapy can help them at some point, but that's not something you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a lot of guilt, and the shame, just shame for staying in it, you know. I was like, what the fuck was I doing?
Yeah.
Like, why would you ever... Yeah, I was like, what was wrong with me? Why wasn't I strong enough to just walk away? Why did I let the same behaviors repeat for 3 years? You know, that's something I'm dealing until today. I'm definitely, with time, more and more compassionate to myself about this, but I definitely still have a strong voice in my head that is upset at me for letting it happen to me, you know?
So at first you kind of, when you moved, you didn't want to think about it, you kind of, and then you started trying to make sense of it because
then with time I started to, you know, inevitably those thoughts started coming to me. I could push them out for a while, but they were coming back in all shapes or forms, tormenting me in my sleep. And
when you say things like that, you always laugh when you say it. It's like
I think I have a very big distance to all of those experiences, and I like to laugh through pain for sure. It's a big coping mechanism that.
No, I'm not making fun of you, of course, when I say that, but I just noticed it twice and before as well. Yeah. So tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard from you, at first you were somehow repressing things, and then you started thinking about it more, and then that's when the eating disorders kicked in.
And at first I was it wasn't very conscious. I just started eating less, but without really conscious effort too.
Why did you eat less? Because you wanted to lose weight?
No, it was completely it was very. I didn't make any I didn't have any eating disorder thoughts at first. You know, it was just. I just stopped eating, but I didn't have any thoughts around it really. But then quite quickly the thoughts came, and I would say like a full-blown eating disorder started. But it was interesting because it replaced for me those thoughts of what I went through in that relationship. So it became this really beautiful buffer for me. It gave me so much comfort. I just totally focused on... I mean, you know, the way it works is you have this horrible voice in your head that tells you things about yourself. And my head was so full of these voices that at least I didn't think of that relationship.
So it's something I ask my clients quite often. I say, you know, because it's not unusual for them, because I remember my own experience, to think about how overweight they are, if that's what they're saying before, because they want to lose weight, and they think about it from the minute they wake up until the minute they fall asleep. And as I sometimes say when I'm in an interview or something, even when they wake up during the middle of the night because they have to go to the loo, again they will put their hand on their tummy or their hips or their legs, and so it's like non-stop. It's there in their system non-stop. And I tell them, you know, what will you do when you won't be bothered, worried about
what
these
are
things?
you going to do about this free time?
Yeah, this free time and this space in your mind that you're going to have, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it's important to address that, because otherwise it's you know, it can start freaking out, thinking, and they will start worrying about something else. I don't want them to start worrying about something else just to replace the worries they had about their body image and their weight. And but they find ways. We always find ways.
Yes.
And some people became creative. People became changed career. Some people were more involved in, I don't know, like a book club, and they became passionate about something else. Passionate or you don't have to be passionate, I guess, but they become involved into something else. And that's such a great freedom. And did you experience that at some point?
Interesting question. The like once the thoughts were gone.
Yeah.
I actually don't think... I would like to say that I consider myself in recovery for 2 years now. but also I hold this word in a very high regard, and I don't feel like right now, for instance, I deserve a title of being in recovery. I went for a breakup and I feel like I have relapsed massively. So it's quite hard for me to think now about this, because for me, I feel like I'm quite actively in it. In my eating disorder right now, yeah.
So what does it, if you don't mind sharing that, what does it look like? Like you...
Right now, I'm just struggling with food intake. Because that's the wiring in my brain that I have, and I think a lot of people with eating disorders have, that is so bloody hard to get rid of. It's
very hard.
It's but it's whenever I feel like I've done something wrong in my life. Whenever I feel like being mean to myself, that's when it comes back and it says, you don't deserve food, you don't get to eat.
So it's a punishing thing. You like punishing yourself by not eating.
Yes, it's a huge punishment system. Absolutely. And somehow when you don't eat, you feel like I don't know what I want to say here. Okay, moving on. So
so when you don't eat, you feel like you're. Is it like the same mechanism that you talked about with this relationship you were in, this 3 years relationship? Is when you don't eat, you're just focusing on this, and you're not thinking too much about being good to yourself, and just
or instead of processing a breakup and just accepting it, I'm kind of trying to silence it out.
The thing is that if I'm interrupting you again, I do that a lot. Is that now even though you're still somehow into it, you know what's going on. Whereas probably before you didn't really know.
Yes.
So now you know, okay, this is me, this is my pattern, this is how I tend to react. It doesn't make it easier, but somehow there is a way out. Whereas maybe before, like when I was overweight, I had no way out in my mind.
Yes, now as much as I feel like I have relapsed, my goal is recovery. At first, the first years of my disorder, there was no concept of that at all, because I wasn't ready to let go of this coping mechanism that disordered eating was. And right now, I'm very ready to let go of it. Sometimes involuntarily it comes back, but I very much know what's my goal and how I want to be. So as much as it's a bit scary when it comes back, it's definitely, I feel much more in control of it. I kind of consciously engage in those behaviors. I let myself do it, which is something I need to work on, because it's just easier. It's easier for me to not eat and punish myself at the gym than to sit with my emotions and think about heartbreak and any things that come with it.
Like, it's easier for me to sometimes see myself or being tempted to eat, although I'm not hungry, and overeat, and thinking, oh, what's going on? And not judging it, but thinking, okay, I'm not gonna, nobody can tell me that I have to stop. It's just up to me. But why am I doing this? And why does it feel good when I'm doing it? Because it can still feel good. So sometimes I'm not hungry, but I love, for example, licorice. I love licorice. But then loving licorice doesn't mean you have to empty like 2 bags of licorice, So at some point you don't love the licorice itself. It's just the action of eating something and somehow numbing yourself, And so I see myself doing it. Well, now in fact I see myself being tempted to do it, but I don't do it, or I don't eat as much as I used to, and then I think I have some kind of kindness for myself, or empathy towards myself. I think, hey Philippe, what's going on? Why are you eating like this? And then I don't try to analyze it, because I tend to analyze things way too much. I try to listen to how I'm feeling and see where it comes from without analyzing. So it's a thin line between analyzing and just being in touch with your emotions. And I think maybe you're someone like that who tends to analyze things too much and not always being in touch with how you're feeling, and it's a thin line. And that's what I encourage many of my clients to do, is to be more in touch with their emotions, so that you understand what's going on.
Yes.
And you just not just judging it afterwards.
Yes.
And,
But what you said about eating the licorice is why I said that I hold the word recovery in like a high regard, because it's just such. It's a hard work. It's a every day. It's a conscious effort you need to make to not engage in certain behaviors that are usual for you. I think I'm maybe not still at a point where I always manage to be in touch with myself enough.
Or as free to eat intuitively, or spontaneously. That's a difficult word.
But it really comes and goes.
But food is there a lot. I mean, food is everywhere. Like, of course, obviously, we have to eat a few times a day, and food is there on our social media. It's there. It's everywhere, and it's like, it's a drugs and alcohol is a bit different, but food we have to eat.
I mean, that's why eating disorders are so tricky, because it's not really a stimulus you can avoid. When I was in the depths of it, I was like, I wish like food didn't exist. I wish I could like, like an alcoholic, just throw out all the food in the house. Well, in this case that would work a little bit different, but that type of system where I can just completely get rid of this thing from my life, but I couldn't. Because as you're saying, it is everywhere, and it's exactly the same with overeating, right? It's everywhere, and you also need to engage in it. You need to eat. But how do I control myself, right, to not overeat? It's you need to have incredible self-control.
Self-control, or just, that's what I work on mainly. Self-control, or just being intuitive and thinking. It's not, because control is. I don't believe that much in control, because that's where eating disorders tend to start, and it's when we try to control things. I believe that. Our bodies are sending us some signals saying, "Hey, thank you, I've had enough. You can stop now." And
well, maybe it's my eating disorder speaking.
You can know, but you know what I mean. Yeah, maybe it is. It's. I think it's more about being aware of what's going on. And so, for example, not so long ago, I was invited at someone's place, and they had like all kind of nuts and stuff on the table, and I was quite bored. In fact, I didn't like the conversations these people were having. They were nice people, but I was bored, and I saw myself being tempted, and I did it. I started eating some. I'll start with wasabi nuts, and then I'll go to this, pecan nuts, or I don't know how you call them, or how they call them, because you're not English either. But and I thought, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. So I stood up and I started engaging more with the people who were there, and then I left quite early, because I thought, well, if I'm bored, there's no reason why I should stay here. But that would be a typical moment for me, where I could be tempted to just stay there and have some food and have this conversation with myself. I'm going to try this one, and then thinking, that's the first part of it, of the conversation. The next part is, I should stop now, but just have one more of this. So it's this dialogue with ourselves. That's why we mention loneliness, because in that moment, it's just you and this bowl of wasabi nuts or pecan nuts or whatever. It's just you and that food, and yes, I'd like it, but no, I shouldn't. It's like, and it's constant.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a difficult one to, but then if you've got this, if you know yourself, and now you do know yourself. Doesn't mean things are always easy, and like and it was nice of you to share that. Sometimes you still struggle with it, but you know what's going on, and you don't judge yourself, I hope, as in the way you used to, and you're just thinking. I like this idea of that's recovery. In fact, in recovery, it means you're just trying to recover from something. You're just trying to get better, and you just learn how to change the pattern of things.
Yes, I think I'm wary about using the word recovery, because I don't want to get lazy with it.
What do you mean?
So I mean, like right now, I'm going through a tough time, and and it makes it easier for me to work on it if I really raise all the red flags and I'm like, you're
Yeah,
not
I
in
understand.
recovery
Yeah.
right now, you're not doing good, you're relapsing, let's like really. But then again, it doesn't really translate onto action, but I think with time it will.
Well, you're still functioning like really well. You're a student doing like a master degree
Master's
in 1 year. Did you say?
Yeah,
Instead,
I do not recommend doing that.
so most people do it in 2 years, but that's what
Yeah.
I've learned. And you're doing it in 1 year, so and you're doing well. And then when we talked last time, you were mentioning that you'd like to apply for the PhD. You'd
Yeah.
like to start a PhD.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a tricky one in London. There's like a 5% acceptance rate, but I'll be battling for a spot.
You will, and maybe you won't get it the first time, or maybe you
Yeah.
will, or maybe in the meantime you will start working on something different. But yeah, you're doing quite well, in fact.
Well, thank you.
No, I'm not trying to.
No,
not
it's
for the
it's
sake
nice
of
to hear because,
because
you
there's-
know you're harsh on yourself. I know.
Yeah, I know.
It
and,
means a lot when
but-
someone sees and says that. You know.
And you've got friends, and you've got a nice. Yeah, because coincidentally, I've met your parents. You've got
The
this
best
system,
parents in the world.
the best parents in the world.
Yes.
And no, mine I think were better. But anyway.
Okay, well, we can discuss this later.
But I mean, that's so yeah. It's because sometimes when we're into our thing, we can kind of see everything in kind of dark. Like everything is dark, everything is difficult,
Yeah.
and it is. Some things are really difficult.
Yeah.
So it's not about not acknowledging that. But you have you've got your social life, you've got your life as a student, and you've got
Yeah.
your family and
Yeah, the more functional you are, I mean, I don't want to generalize, I should speak about myself, but I found it that the more functional I am in the real world, the more functional you are in the real world, the more you are rooted in the reality, the more you see, for instance, people eating normally. And it can kind of work both ways, but I did find it helpful because I do have a tendency to spend a lot of time on my own. I love being home, and staying home, especially throughout COVID, showed me that is a huge vehicle for those disordered behaviors, because you're just alone, no one sees you, and you can do whatever you want, and your eating disorder is so happy,
you don't have to hide,
jumping up and down all the time and screaming in your head.
And how do you feel about your body image now?
Right now,
So because it's two different things. I mean, they can be related. They're not always. They're often related, but some people have issues with their body image, which is not always about being overweight, by the way. It can be different kind of. I'm too short, I'm too like this, and it can be so many different. And I want to say here that it's a big issue for men as well, which
absolutely.
and
Men struggling with with their muscle mass, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
I see this so much, and in my guy friends, I know a lot of them are insecure about, are they muscular enough, and I just find it so sad that really those certain standards, body standards that are perpetuated by media have really reached not only just women, just everyone is struggling. Men think they're not muscular enough. Women think they're not womanly enough in their shape. It's really everywhere in the society. And that's what I also hoped our group can bring in, is really all sorts of people. We are not trying to close the group to just people with eating disorders. Anyone that is struggling with how they see their body, is very welcome to come and speak with us. And, you don't have to engage in any disordered eating to, fit our group.
No, and you can be also someone, you can be, let's say, a parent or a friend of someone
Exactly.
is dealing with these things, and maybe by hearing what others are, the experience of others, you can think, oh, okay, that's what my daughter or my son or my best friend is going through. I had no idea. I just thought he or she was being difficult or picky with food or this or that. But in fact, they can really see the depths of it. It can be, you know. And
I mean, for me, what I found the most debilitating about this eating disorder is at times I felt like this has to be the worst mental illness, because I felt like, okay, I couldn't eat. On top of it, I have this. Sorry, I'm swearing all the time.
no, it's fine.
I have this voice in my head, so I feel like I'm literally at times schizophrenic. I'm incredibly depressed from lack of nutrition and all these issues with self-esteem. And I honestly just felt like the whole world was closing in on me, and I felt like there was no way out, because also because of how strongly wired this system is in your head. It really becomes a part of you, and you identify yourself with it, which I think is a big part of recovery, is rediscovering your real self and who I am.
That's through therapy, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
My recovery path started with therapy, and I've done that for a couple of years, but I didn't really think like it was bringing much. Also, you know, with therapy you need to be patient, and I'm a huge believer in therapy. I think everyone should have a space where they can, without judgment, speak about anything they want. But yeah, when it came to so I was with my therapy, I was understanding where I was coming from, where these issues were coming from.
Yeah. But you just felt like it wasn't.
But it wasn't affecting my actions, and I
Okay.
came to a
I see what you
point
mean.
where I could write a doctorate about you know, my eating
Maybe
disorder.
that's what you'll do at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, I really understood everything, but it had absolutely zero translation onto my behaviors. So it created even more agony in me, because I understood where I'm coming from. I understood my triggers. I understood everything, and I was still like not strong enough to not engage in those behaviors. And then therefore perpetuated more shame and guilt and anger, and it's a long journey.
Yeah.
I must say.
And then you did a different kind of, or maybe you don't want to talk about that. You had a different kind of therapy.
No, I stayed with the same therapy. I went to a clinic. I went to an eating disorder clinic in Poland. I stayed there not long enough. I stayed there a month. I think you should do 3 months from my experience. Now I feel like if I stayed 3 months, that could have been great, because the first month you're learning how to act around food and table without allowing your thoughts to get too involved in how you cut your food and what spoon you're using. And you're only, you know, scratching the surface. But as we know, eating disorders come from all these other deeply rooted issues. And I think it's at least like a 3-month job of sitting in a clinic and really just going over this. And yeah, it kind of helped, kind of. I definitely, my body improved. My body weight improved, and I learned even more why I'm doing this.
Yeah, it's a process, I guess. Yeah.
But I would say, honestly, it was 2023 that just last year, I actually felt a difference. I actually felt a certain weight lifted off me.
So it's funny to use that expression.
Yeah.
But it's right. I mean, yeah.
So, you know, it takes a while, but I really encourage everyone to work on it, because with time it just really gets worse and worse. Those behaviors are really getting reinforced.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to
It's about it, and then when you get better, I think somehow when you're like that, it's part of your persona somewhere. By that I mean, for example, my friends or family, they were seeing me as someone who loved food, who was a jolly person. So that's how very often anyway, it's changing now a bit. When someone is overweight and eats a lot, you think, oh, he loves food, he loves life, he's jolly. I mean, I hate that word, but anyway. But So when I started eating much less, eating what I needed, and I was invited somewhere, people would say, "Oh, what's wrong with you? You're not eating much, and are you depressed?" Or you say, "No, I'm really well. I'm fine, but I've had enough." And I couldn't blame them for that. It was part of my persona. I was talking about food. At those days I had restaurants, so I was a restaurateur in Belgium. Food was like a lot into my life and into my social life and professional life, and so I think the persona, the image we build around ourselves, is difficult to change.
Yeah.
Because every change is difficult, I guess. But here in this case, like, do we lose some friends along the way because they were friends? They're not bad people. They're not bad friends, but they did fit a certain scenario. But now that when someone changes, are these friends still the people that are good for me?
Yeah, I guess this is something people very much who are recovering from addiction deal with, right?
You're right. Yeah.
As it's in the end, who you surround yourself with has an incredible imprint on you, and it doesn't necessarily mean someone is bad, but
No.
there are just people who serve you and people who don't.
So I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm looking forward to. We're gonna meet quite often now, I guess, to speak about this project. And I love the idea of being able to provide that space and for anyone who's dealing with their body image, with body image issues. And again, like we said, it's not a therapy. It's free, but it's not therapy. It's just a safe space for people to listen to others who are dealing with things which maybe will resonate with their own story, because not two stories are exactly the same. We'll have a different story, and it will be free. And I love that idea, because I think that, and I mean, same for me, therapy, because I'm a therapist and I live in London, so I need to make some kind of a living, but therapy is expensive.
Yeah.
And so even if it's not therapy, it can be maybe a start for some people to think, okay, there are many other people like me, struggling, and how can I get better?
Yes, absolutely.
Is there anything else you wanted to say? Well, we're whispering right now. Is there anything else you wanted to say? No, we'll talk again. Anyways, I think I'm sure we will have more to. It was our first episode together, but I would really like it if you would come back on the podcast and we talk about other things related to this. Thank you very much, Justina.
Thank you, Philippe.